evening from the News Radio, 1120 AM and 93.7 FM KPNW studios. I am Jorge, also known as Bill London, also known as Carlos, sometimes known as Gunter, but my favorite is Sven. All right, so news tonight brought to you by none other than Rick Dancer himself because, well, he believes that you need to hear the whole story. So here we go. All right, that said, a lot of this today is going to be kind of following up on stories that we've covered in the past. Now, we've told you about the situation in Grants Pass with the homeless. And if you recall, and I'm just going to kind of recap here really quickly, Grants Pass actually went to the Supreme Court arguing that the way that the laws were set up to deal with homelessness actually handcuffed governments, both city, county, and even state, from actually dealing with the issue. And the Supreme Court said, we agree. So, following up, a number of homeless encampments were closed in Grants Pass, and a new suit was brought against the city, this time by Disability Rights Oregon. And they said, well, the way that they have the homeless sites set up and everything else, it's just not fair to people who are disabled. All right. Now, an injunction, a temporary injunction or a restraining order was set. And now, once again, the Grants Pass City Council is in session. And they have now made a list of 4 preliminary sites where homeless people could camp. Now, the move was made to get the temporary restraining order lifted that bars the city from enforcing most of its homeless camping regulations. Now, keep in mind, Oregon has some pretty specific laws dealing with what you can and can't do with the homeless. And to be honest, the laws favor those who are homeless. Well, all of the sites that the city of Grants Pass has chosen have homes and businesses nearby. And what started all of this and led Grants Pass eventually to the Supreme Court was that most of their previous proposals before had homeless camps near homes and businesses. And it met with stiff community resistance. And here we go again. We'll keep you updated. Okay, let's follow up on that teacher strike from Portland. Remember, it happened last November. And it, of course, basically wiped out an entire month of school for Portland students. Well, at the time, the teachers union in Portland, they wanted huge raises. And they were saying that the school board's warnings about a lack of money and a budget crisis were all just either bad math or accounting tricks, saying absolutely those are totally wrong. You have the money to give us. And so the strike ended with the teachers pretty much getting what they wanted. More money, some more staff, and a certain amount of caps on class sizes. All right, so they won. Well, at a virtual Portland Public Schools Community Budget Forum this week, Superintendent Dr. Kimberly Armstrong told and said that the school district would soon launch discussions about closing schools. Armstrong said, while this academic year we're not having a conversation about closing schools, we will be engaged in that all throughout next school year. So the Portland Public Schools faces a $40 million shortfall in their budget, and it's expected to grow. And that will be for the upcoming 2025 through 2026 school year, which the district says all of that shortfall is because of rising costs. And also declining enrollment. As a matter of fact, enrollment, and we've reported about this before on Get Real, the enrollment in Oregon schools started declining not only during the pandemic, but following the pandemic and continues to this day. And it's not because kids are aging out. It's because kids are pulling out. Now, Portland State University shared a forecast that projects Portland Public Schools stand to lose about 15% of their students over the next 10 years. That's 6,300 students. And those numbers are going to be making filling the schools challenging and also funding schools challenging. You see, the way that it works in Oregon is the money follows the kid. Each kid brings in about $17,200 to the school each year that they attend. That's another problem with attendance, which is at an all-time low in Oregon schools. There is a question about, well, how much of that money will go to a school where a kid supposedly is attending, but he just doesn't show up. So you're going to see some changes in the Portland Public Schools, and they got what they wanted. The Oregon Secretary of State, following up on yet another story, has now referred 3 cases of voter fraud, or possible voter fraud, call it alleged, to the state's Department of Justice, stemming from what the state now likes to refer to as a clerical error in the DMV's motor voter program that actually signed up about 1,300 non-U.S. citizens to vote. In the months leading up to the 2024 general election, Oregon announced that individuals who were not U.S. citizens were, registered to vote through DMV because of the clerical error. The discovery was followed by state leaders, including Governor Tina Kotek, saying, "We need to audit this program." Well, what really needs to be audited is ODOT, because ODOT, of course, runs the Department of Motor Vehicles, and ODOT sat on the discovery of these people who were not citizens being registered to vote for almost a month before they said anything to the Secretary of State, who's in charge of elections and voting here in the state, and the governor, who is in charge of the whole thing. And they have refused to answer why it was that they took so long to actually tell the people who needed to know. Now, of those who were, again, erroneously registered, 9 had what they say are potential illegal voting history. However, only 3 of them at this point have been referred for possible prosecution. Well, we are into now week 5 of the largest healthcare strike in the state's history. Nurses at 8 Providence hospitals here in Oregon overwhelmingly voted down proposed labor contracts, opting to continue a strike now in its 5th week. In a statement, the Oregon Nurses Association said 83% of their voting members rejected the proposed contracts, and the labor union said they are calling on Providence to get back to negotiations immediately. They were at negotiations. Remember, the governor told both sides, sit down and talk. Now, each hospital's labor agreement with Providence Health and Services needed separate approval from a majority of its union nurses, and the final votes came in, and, well, here we are, back at it, not at work. The Catholic not-for-profit hospital said that they're disappointed in the results, and they said that they would explore the next steps for these bargaining units with federal mediators and the ONA. About 5,000 nurses right now are on strike against all of the Providence hospitals here in Oregon, and they walked off the job on January 10th, and it started the largest healthcare strike in state history. Of course, the key disputes in the negotiation, would it be pay? Correct. And also working conditions. Nurses have clashed with Providence management over all sorts of different things, including the state's new hospital staffing law in their contract. All right, well, Oregon can't seem to grow private sector jobs, and state government continues to bleed money, but the state certainly has been able to grow government jobs. Okay, how do we know that? Let's look at the Oregon Employment Department's numbers for December. What they showed was In December, we lost 1,900 jobs in hospitality, 1,800 in manufacturing, 1,000 in financial activities, and 900 in retail trade. Government jobs increased by 700 in that 1 month. Well, there's been a lot of talk about ICE deportations going on around the country, and there's also been a lot of talk about Oregon, which happens to be what we refer to as a sanctuary state. And we haven't seen or heard of ICE setting foot in Oregon since this all started with the swearing in of Donald Trump until now. Now, while other high-profile criminal deportations have been reported all over the U.S., everything has been pretty much silent in Oregon. But now it's being reported that there has been ICE activity in the Mid-Columbia region as of February 5th. Wasco County Sheriff Lane McGill has confirmed that ICE contacted his office. Now, he didn't say what they contacted about, who it might have been, or what the conversation was. McGill does say, quote, "We can't aid or assist. We can't use any public resources. Any federal agency that's doing immigration enforcement," McGill says, "is not even allowed in our conference rooms." So far, ICE has arrested about 8,300 people across the country between January 23rd and 31st. But nothing else is pretty much being said about it. As for law enforcement and ICE here in Oregon, law enforcement agencies all over the state are saying their hands are tied by Oregon's sanctuary laws. Now, this next story is Eugene-centric, but it's kind of interesting because it includes a lot of things that you see being done by politicians and what I like to call a little bit of bait and switch, or basically just juggling deck chairs and calling one thing blue when it's actually red and one thing black when it's actually gray. So Eugene residents are going to be paying a new monthly fee after city councilors decided that they would not be considering budget cuts to fill an $11 million hole in their budget. So they have enacted what they call a fire fee. Now, what they're going to do is they're going to shuffle money out of the general fund that usually goes to fire services and then say, well, we'll dedicate the fee money to the fire. So they'll take all this other extra money that would normally go to fire and do whatever it is they're going to do with it. Now, the fee is going to be tacked on to people's e-web bill, and that's Eugene Water and Electric Board. So it's going on their utility bills, the fee. And it's going to cost the average median residence about $132 a year. Now, keep in mind, all of this is based on property size. So when we say median, that's an average. Some will pay less, some will pay more, some will pay actually considerably more. Businesses, a median business, is likely to pay actually about $500+ a year extra in just a brand new fee. Now, the vote was not unanimous. Councilors Jennifer Yeh, Eliza Kaczynski, Matt Keating, and Ellen Zielinski, along with Lindsay Leach, all said, yeah, let's do the fee, which is really a tax. City councilors Mike Clark, Greg Evans, and Randy Groves voted against it. Now, Clark and Groves said that they thought that if they were going to do this and implement a fee that's really a tax, that they need to put it in front of voters because, as Groves said, this is other people's money. Now, the vote was also done, like I said, to avoid budget cuts in other city departments and services. And during their Monday night meeting, councilors were actually offered two choices by the city manager. Okay, you can pass the new fee, or we're going to lay off 40 employees and close a swimming pool and community center for the kids. So the fee passed. Councilor Mike Clark said a group of community members had already contacted the city and said that they were planning to place the fire fee measure on the ballot. Clark said if the petition is successful, the city might reach the July budget deadline without a clear answer on new revenue. A few city council members opposed the ballot measure, were opposed to somebody putting it on the ballot, including Jennifer Ye and Elijah Kaczynski, who both argued, hey, constituents elected them to make difficult decisions. Yeah, but I think most of them figured if you were going to enact a new fee tax, maybe you'd ask for their opinion on it. Now, the interesting thing here is they're calling it a fire fee. There's a lot of other things that come out of the general fund budget that have dedicated funds going to them, like, say, the library, like, say, parks, like, say, a variety of other things, homeless services. But instead, they choose to call it a fire fee. Now, why would that be? Well, it's a nice little bit of PR spin. So if they tell you, yeah, we're going to charge you $130 extra a year as a fire fee to protect the community from fires and potentially save you if you keel over and need to have somebody give you resuscitation in one form or another or what have you, people look at that quite a bit differently than if they look at their water and electricity bill and go, wait a minute, why am I paying a fee for parks? I thought I paid that with my taxes. Like I said, it's really nothing more than political bait and switch. The fire union, not particularly happy about it. That's a story for another day because they actually want a fire district, which they say would handle things a lot better, but now we have a fire fee. All right. This look at the news brought to you by Rick's Hair Care Products, because Rick looks swell. All right, Rick, time for you to get real.